trying to share your thought process and the knowledge that you have learned so far in couple of years, that too in a customer engagement area and now in Power Apps, right? So I think I hope everyone is gone through the agenda. So today's topic, the first session of today's is Kunal is going to focus more on the Dataverse. So he's going to help us to understand what is Dataverse, why to use Dataverse, and the each and every aspects. So Kunal comes with a strong solution architect background from customer engagement days, and recently he's working with Capgemini, focused on Power Platforms and customer engagement apps. So, Kunal, over to you and help us to understand what you're going to share with us.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I hope everyone can see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for the confirmation. Let me share a quick one about myself. So first of all, once again, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you are joining, and welcome to this Global Power Platform Bootcamp Mumbai, India edition. I am Kunal Chopra. I am a Power Platform Solution Architect at Capgemini India, and I'm also an MCT and TOCAF certified with 15 years of experience with Microsoft Dynamics 365 customer engagement and Power Platform technologies as well. Personally, I am a tech enthusiastic blogger and love to travel. And here's my LinkedIn ID as well, which I'll keep it in chat so that you guys can connect me as well if you want, we can interact and share the knowledge after this session as well. So with this, first of all, thank and also I would like to thank the Global Power Platform Bootcamp community and the organizers, Priyesh, Rakesh, uh, uh, and also that to give me this opportunity to talk in this forum. So thanks a lot to have me over here in this valued, esteemed stage. Okay, so what we are going to talk today. We are going to speak about the Dataverse. So we'll start with the Dataverse overview, and then we'll say, okay, why we want to go ahead with the Dataverse. And we'll also see what is there which is making this Dataverse happen, that is Dataverse under hood, followed by a quick demo and then Q&A. So this is a quick agenda for today, and I'll just move to the next slide to start with it. Dataverse. So Dataverse, previously known as the Common Data Service, enables to securely store and manage data that is being used by the business application. So it is not only just a database, but it is the overall a platform, I would say, which helps us to not only store the data, but manage it as well. And the diagram which is being shown over here explains it very well. To start with, we can see the Dataverse as an API. So if you want to access the Dataverse, it is always through an API. So whenever we want to say like, okay, I want to use a Dataverse, it is always through an API that I can access through, be it an Visual Studio or Power Apps or any other applications, Xamarin, GitHub, anywhere. So it is always accessible through an API. The other components which makes it special are the security features. So Dataverse is having its own security features with a special authentication, authorization, and auditing capabilities, which we'll see in detail in the upcoming presentation. Apart from that, it also has a logical layer so that it also does some of the validations for us, duplicate detection in case of any of the records, customers' records are getting duplicate, or any of the records are getting duplicate. It helps us to identify those duplicates and do the merging as well. It has its own platform to run some system jobs, workflows, and the plugins. Apart from that, it is also having a data capability, say from the reporting aspect, common data model, which also will touch into a little bit in detail in the upcoming presentation. But just to highlight, it's the data. And again, it's not only the relational database. It definitely under the hood, it is having the Azure SQL, which is the main engine, which is actually running the relational database to store the data in tables and columns. But it's more than that. It also enables us to store the files in the blob storage, the log files, and also semi-structured data with the capability to search across multiple tables or the single table. And apart from that, it can be extended to the data lake as well. And last but not the least, in this world, integration capability is the utmost important. As we know, it's having an API-based endpoint which we can connect through, but it also has some of the Microsoft standard integration capability through some connectors which we can use, or we can use the Event Hub, Azure Service Bus. We can export to Data Lake and also export to this Azure SQL through some connectors. So it has all in one the integration capability as well. So just to highlight, again, it's not just a database, but it's a full-fledged, I would say, and platform which is like a backbone for, I would say, backbone for most of the Power Apps, and which enables to not only store the data, but also to get the logic, security, and integration and much more things to do. So this was a quick overview of the Dataverse, but as we know, this is not enough. Okay, so let's see why we should go with Dataverse. So let's deep dive into that. The first aspect of it is the any data. So when I say any data, so over here, it works on the relational database where it is having the things stored as the tables, columns. We can create a relationship between those tables. We can have the search enabled for that, and we can store images in the blob storage. Also, we'll be talking about in security, it is having an auditing capability as well, which is being stored in the form of log files. So it is the combination of the relational data as well as the unstructured data over here, which can be extended to Azure Data Lake. Apart from that, also over here, I would like to highlight this image, which is about the common data model. So it also empowers everyone with a common data model. What does that mean? So we have the tables which are the industry standard for any application. Say for starting with the sales, we'll have all those right tables right from the orders, invoices, quote, all those being readily configured, which are at the industry standard level. Similarly for the service, finance, and this are from the domain of the CRM perspective or the ERP perspective. But also on top of that, just to highlight, there are some of the solutions which are provided by Microsoft Dynamics 365 on Dataverse. These are industry solutions like public sector, and also there is a healthcare cloud, which in turn use the Dataverse, which is having some of the standard tables over here. The importance over here is like it gives a quick start for any development that we want. So we don't have to think it like, okay, how should we start with the data? What should be the table? It gives us a complete foundation layer to start with. And on top of that, it gives us a capability to build our own custom tables as per our business requirement. So this was the first and the utmost important capability of Dataverse, that is can go with an any data. Now let's look at the another capability, that is an any app. So any app is basically like we can, as I mentioned, it's provide a powerful REST-based APIs. So it can connect to any of the environment. So it can be integrated with anyone, any of the application. And so it's not only like the desktop, web, or mobile applications only, but also it can connect to some of the applications which is quite in demand, considering the self-service capabilities that we all need in the portal. That is basically the bot capabilities as well. So the Power Virtual Agent is also on top of Dataverse, which is basically enabling the self-service capabilities. Also, there are some of the AI models that we can that use the data of Dataverse, which I'll be quickly highlighting also in my demo part of it. And also we can see that some of the native apps which are there like Excel, Outlook, customer engagement apps, Power BI Desktop, Power Query, or SQL Management Studio for the developers. So it is not only for the citizen developers, but for the pro developers as well. There is an API available so that they can build some complex app as well on top of the Dataverse. So I'll be going a little bit more in detail about any app in our integration part as well. But this was just to give an overview that the capability perspective, it can connect to any app. The third and important aspect of it is analytics and reporting. So reporting is the most important part of any application, be it a sales application, service, customer service, be it in a domain, healthcare, or banking, or anywhere. And the Microsoft Dataverse has the capability to draw some basic charts, paginated reports. And apart from that, if you're looking for some analytical reports, which are quite complex, we already have a pre-built connector from a Dataverse, which is can connect through the Power BI, and it can bring the data over here, and we can build our complex reports on top of Dataverse. And also, it's not only limited to that, it also to some extent supports the security model of the Dataverse in the Power BI reporting. So that's an extension. So it's not only that we are just giving the connections and just build a report, but with some of the connectors capabilities, we can also get the inbuilt security aspects of it, so that they can see only, so the user who is having a proper role in Dataverse should only see only those records which they are allowed to. So that's the other beauty of the Dataverse as a platform. And as we are moving towards, as we have seen in the keynote speaker as well, like we are moving to the low code, no code world. So these all capabilities are much more required. The other part of it is the security. So security is one of the most important part of any of the application over here. And Dataverse provides, I would say, like 360-degree view of 360-degree security over here. Starting with the authentication. So the Dataverse is basically built on Azure, and all the users which are there are authenticated by the Azure AD. So inbuilt mechanism of Dataverse is uh, authentication is through Azure AD. Now, authorization capability it has is it is having the security roles configuration which are already available. We can enhance that. What does that mean? Is basically as a user, I can be assigned one security role. With that role, I can define what all table I can access. Not only limited to that, I can define a field level or the column level security as well, through which I can restrict some of the key information which I don't want to showcase to a particular level of user. Saying, for example, if there is some personal identifiable information, say their unique identification number of any of a citizen. So I just want to mask it for some of the level of users. I don't want to make it available for all. We can apply the column level security over there. So it also has all those inbuilt capabilities which is required for an enterprise level application. And the third and important part of security is an auditing. So auditing actually helps to see what all changes have been done in that particular table at the column level. And the beauty of this is we can define the auditing at the level we want, and also we can get from the auditing the user summary view as well. When I say user summary view, like who has logged in and how much they are logging in, so frequently with which IPs, and also those level of the basic details also we can have it in the Dataverse, which can be definitely extended through Microsoft 365 Compliance Manager, where we get the read audits and other details as well. But whatever the auditing capabilities which are must have are being provided by Dataverse, which is again a key feature. And one line which I have highlighted over here, which is quite important for us to know, is like the Dataverse security is being defined, like, or I would say the having a boundary at the environment level. So say, for example, I'm having the different environments in place, and it's not something like once I apply the security at particular environment, it applies to all, but this gives us an opportunity or a capability to say like, okay, for the sales application, basically my entire environment is a sales environment where I want to have this type of security. Or for service environment, I want to have this type of, or for different departments, I want to have a different type of securities. So it is at the database level or the environment level through which we can define, and that's a boundary that we need to keep in mind whenever we are designing the security aspect of it. So this was about the security. Now coming back to the integration part of it. So I briefly covered in any app that the integration part of it. So it can be integrated to any of the application. So over here, I have just highlighted few of the patterns, I would say, which will give us an idea that, okay, what type of integrations I can build or what type of app that I can have. So to start with is the event-based integration that we can define. So this is the first one which I'm referring to. The first one is a Dataverse, where on which I can have events that can be triggered, and through those events, I can make those information published or to a particular app or wherever my subscriber is. So that is basically the event-based integration can also be done. Apart from that, there are always a requirement where we need to get some data from other applications to the Dataverse to perform some logic or some operation over there. And that's where the one of the other pattern that we can use is through the connectors. So logic apps and Power Automate are having the inbuilt Dataverse connectors, which are again quite secure, backed by Microsoft with all those security and compliance requirement that we have, and through which we can ingest the data into the Dataverse. So this is just an example of ingest which I have given, but there is through these connectors, we can also fetch the data and we can just publish it somewhere else as well. So taking an example, this through the connectors also, there is uh, always a capability to integrate Dataverse. The other part of the integration is basically it is backed by the REST-based APIs, which is quite critical for I think most of those might be a developer background over here. So yes, it is having an OData API which we can consume, and again those APIs are properly authenticated and so through Azure AD, and also we can define at the API level we can also create our own custom APIs. So there is a capability where we can define our own custom APIs through which we can say like, okay, I just want to publish this set of information through this API. Apart from that, Microsoft does provide some of the standard APIs, say like, for example, for the customer records for an account table, I can fetch all those customers which are created in last X days through that particular OData API. So this is just to highlight that, okay, there is a option to have a REST-based API integration as well. And those who are not from a Dynamics background, so there is an app plugin option. So the plugin is basically a capability that is available within Dataverse, which can be triggered on a particular event. So one of the options that we talked about over here was something which is outside the Dataverse platform, where we can just get the event and push the data. Over here, within the platform, it is having a plugin as a capability which can actually trigger a webhooks. So webhook is again an Azure webhook, which I'm referring to. Through its layer, on an event, I can define that, okay, this is a event on which my plugin should get triggered through a configuration and a little bit of coding on a C sharp, and then it can actually publish it. And again, this can be extended further through an Azure function as well, which like for if you want to do some extra computation on top of the data that we have received. So these are the few patterns which actually I have came across, and there's something from the Microsoft documentation as well, which I have highlighted over here. But there is a lot more to do that we can have it through Dataverse. So as I mentioned over here and more, is there are a lot of the integration patterns that we can have it through Dataverse. Okay, the next is about the import and export data. So you might say like, okay, why Kunal? Again, we discussed about that integration. Why you are highlighting again import export data? So I would like to highlight one key point over here, and that's why I have kept it over here. Along with the capability, I just want to highlight one of the use case that, okay, where we should go with the Dataverse. So Dataverse is basically, again, as I mentioned, is not only the database. So whenever we are defining any requirement or designing any solution, we should always keep in mind that Dataverse is not database. So before getting into detail of import export data, I would like to highlight this point that before Dataverse is not a database. If there is any requirement where we just want to have a high volume data and do a reporting on that, then Dataverse is not the right platform to it. We should think of the alternate solution. But definitely, there are many other requirements where we want to get a data from other system, do some logic on top of that. And then also there are some requirements where we want to export the data to some other application and they'll be processing that application for the further use cases. So for those scenarios, I would say these are some of the patterns to export and import data, and that to be in a bulk format. So as a Power Platform, there is a data flow and Power Query capability available through which we can use the Dataverse connectors for it, and we can ingest the data into Dataverse. Also, there is a premium connector available for Azure Data Factory for Dataverse, which can be used, which I have also used in one of my implementation, which worked very well to extract the data or ingest the data into Dataverse. And that connectors is basically like we were actually doing a lot of the transformations in data factory, and that's where we have used a data factory plus Dataverse connectors, and this worked very well. This pattern is something which I have used it personally, and yeah, it works very well. And so as I mentioned, like there are the needs where we need to export the data as well. So we can export the data to from the Dataverse using all the things that I have highlighted over here. But just to give a summary of like, okay, there is a data flow, data factory, Power Query, Power Automate are the options that are available. Apart from that, there is one more powerful option that is available, and that is an Azure Synapse Analytics. So with the help of and this is something which is being provided by Microsoft and can be configured through the Power Apps portal. So that through the Maker portal, we can just go and just have it like the few steps of configuration, and where we can define that, okay, these are my tables and I want to push it to the Dataverse, data lake at this frequency. So, and basically if there is any update happening, so all those things can be configured in the Azure Synapse Analytics, which is out of the box, I would say, provided by Microsoft platform. And is it something that is can be very useful where you have a requirement for enterprise level applications where the data is coming from the data CRM application, say for Dynamics 365 CE, sales service and marketing. On Dataverse, we have an ERP application, say SAP, and all those application data, we need to get it together into our data lake, and there is a reporting done on top of that. So for those scenarios, I would say this Azure Synapse Analytics is the option. So which can be utilized, and which will be very helpful where we can push the data to data lake. So I'm also trying to give some of the real-time examples as well, which are based on my experience, so that you can understand the power of Dataverse, and also the real-time some real-time examples where we can use it and where we should not use it. So this was about the import export of data, and the other part of it is the availability and scalability part of it. So as we know, for any of the application, the availability is the key part of it. And the Dataverse is designed to meet the enterprise level scalability needs, and it offers the service level agreement of 99.9% uptime from Microsoft. And over here, there are a lot many aspects which are working, but some of the key aspects I want to highlight over here, which as our this is again like I want to share a knowledge on top of like to make sure that our applications are built in the right way. That's why I've highlighted this few points. So the first point which I want to highlight is the entitlement limits. So entitlement limits are basically the number of requests the users are entitled to make each day. How is this being working? So basically like for each and every users, the license users are being entitled to have an X number of the requests that they can make to Dataverse. And trust me, those requests are very high. At the top of mind, I can remember like the Power Apps license. It is like a 40,000 request per user per day. And that's, I think, sufficient for any application or any user to work on those application. So those are the entitlement limits, which actually are making sure that all the our application is quite available, and all the parameters are running up to the level. The other limit that is being set, that's an API limit, is on the service protection limit. So the service protection limit basically is the number of concurrent connections per user account that we can make. And also along with that, the combination is number of API requests per that connection and the amount of execution time that each connection is using. And this is really a critical factor for it, because considering it is on the cloud where it's using a shared infrastructure, and if any one application is using all the resources, then there is a chance that the entire application might have some issues. So this is something really critical. And over here, we need to keep in mind that, okay, whenever we are doing some of the bulk data import, and this is where this comes into the picture, the service protection limit. So if you are doing a bulk data import, we need to make sure that all our connections are following the Microsoft recommendations, where we say like there are multiple threads running in parallel. Also, we need to implement a the exception handling mechanism. Microsoft does provide that as well. Say, for example, your service limit is being hit. So the limit is around 4,000 requests per user or per connection in a 5 minutes of sliding window. That is also too much. But if that your request is being hit while doing a transaction, it will immediately give us you the error or the or message saying that okay, there is a retry that you can try and the time as well, like after how many minutes you can try. So that's also a framework which is quite robust. So while designing our application for the bulk data transfer, we should keep in mind about the service protection limit as well. So this is something very critical. Also, there are some of the methods which are like execute multiple so that we should make sure that all the requests are in batch and multi-threaded as I mentioned earlier. So these are the important API limits which are for Dataverse to make sure the application platform is up and running all the time. The other thing is the
Yeah, Kunal,
backups.
sorry to
Yes,
interrupt. You just have 5 more minutes before our next speaker can take over.
sure. Okay.
Thanks.
So this is the backup. So over here, so there are the backups like system backups and the manual backups that we can have it. And so system backups are the automated backups that we can go for, and the manual backups is something which can do it manually. And the Dataverse, as it is being deployed and supported across the region, across the globe, that gives a trust that okay, it's there. So as we have seen, why Dataverse over here. So just to have a quick recap on why Dataverse, it can work with any data type, any app, any analytical reporting, security, integration aspect of it. It is quite robust and available as well. Now let's move to the next part of it. Like, okay, this is the Dataverse that we are talking about a lot in this last 15, 20 minutes or 30 minutes or so. But what is it? What is making this happen? So over here we have an Azure infrastructure on which this Dataverse is running. So the middle box that you see over here is basically the Dataverse. In a nutshell, it's quite big than what is being given over here. So we have a one API endpoint that is a load balancer which actually handles billions of requests, I would say. And there we have all the entire infrastructure running. So it's not only the Azure SQL, but we have the powerful applications running the webs, jobs, reportings. It has the blobs and Cosmos DBs and search and all those things available over here, which makes it possible. So this is about the Azure infrastructure through which it is running. Also, it can be extended further as through integration. So, like to respecting the time, I will not go into the detail of that. And with this, I would quickly show you the demo. It won't take, I think, a couple of minutes just to give you an overview of what is Dataverse, how it can be used. So organizers, please give me 2 more minutes. I would just like to show this part of it to give you an overview of what is
Sure.
Dataverse real time. Thank you. So over here, as we can see, this is the maker portal through which we can log into. And there is an environment available, which I was referring for the security perspective. And over here, I can see the list of tables. From here, I can create a new table. I'll say new table, and based on which I can go and create a new table. So here, see, for example, let me say this, for example, speaker table over here. So, and I'll say click on save. Might be my internet connection. It's taking like time to save. Yeah. So over here we can see this the table is being created, and once the table is created, it is just getting refreshed. But the time it is getting refreshed, I would like to highlight some of the key aspect. It's from the schema perspective, as we can see the columns, relationship keys that we can see it over here. There are the forms that we can build on Dataverse that is quite intuitive, which you can go and try on the top of it. The views that we can create, the charts, the dashboards, and the logic part which I was referring to. So there is an inbuilt logic engine which is there called business rules through which we can have some basic validations in place. And like I want to have, for example, show this field or lock this field or hide this field. So all those things we can do quickly with drag and drop with the help of the business rule. So as we can see, the UI is quite intuitive, and I can see over here, let me say the speaker name is Kunal Chopra, and I can see the another the speaker is say for Rakesh. So over here it gives a view like an Excel like table, which I can just use it and show it over here. The other data column I would like to highlight over here is the Power FX formula. Okay, so say for example, I would say like there is a session, so like session start date and over here, and it is just I'll say it as a format is the date and time. I'll just select again date and time over here. I'll save. And the feature which I'm showing is quite exciting. This is the last feature for this demo. So I'll say end session end time, and I'll say, for example, data type is date and time, and save. Okay. Meanwhile, it's saving. Yeah, it's done. So, and the last column which I want to highlight is the duration. So, say for the duration, there is an option where I can define my formula, which is in preview. Okay, so this is a feature which is in preview, and just to bring in place, like, okay, this is a calculated field which works on the calculations that I have defined. Say, and it is again having all the IntelliSense. So I'll say like date diff function should work with the column as a start date. So I'll say like, okay, session start date, comma, then we'll say like end time, session end time, and I want to have the duration in minutes. So as we can see, I can just click on save, and my column is created for the with Power FX, so that at least, and just to show you over here, I'll say this is the 25th, and over here, let me just refresh it for a while. So this is 5:30 a.m. So let me make it as 10:30 a.m. Copy this, paste it over here, and make it as an 11:30 a.m. And we can see this duration is auto calculated, which is quite in nanoseconds. So this is where the power lies for the Dataverse, which is a new feature. I would urge everyone to go and explore this part of it. It's like trial version is available. The Azure Synapse link in the like there is a shortage of time which I cannot show you, but this again the which I was referring to where we can click and configure the data to go over there. The data flows is again a part of it where I can create my own data flow and where I can use the Dataverse and I can push and pull the data from Dataverse and also, I can have some of the AI models that can be trained on top of that. Again, it is having some of the other options as choices, which can say option set and also. So in a nutshell, it is a very powerful platform, I would say, and which is not only database, but yeah. So it is basically quite powerful and I would say the backbone again, repeating the same thing, but yeah, with this, I would like to conclude my demo and yeah, so is it okay to take a question or think or we are already out of time?
We're out of time, but of course, users can post questions in the chat,
Yes,
and
I
if you're
think yes,
around,
that would,
would
yeah,
encourage them to, reach out to you as well.
yes, yes,
And that
definitely.
was a
So sorry,
yeah, Kunal.
Priyesh, yeah, sorry.
Is
Yeah,
I was just saying that that was a really insightful session. Thank you for taking it quite deep and putting it all into a 360-degree view. So definitely, I believe it has everything that needed to take at least a little bit of something back with us. I see a hand that is raised, but I believe Chandrasekhar Balaji, if you could just post your question in the chat,
yes,
um, Kunal should be able
I
to
will.
address that. I hope that's okay.
Okay, yeah, and thank
Great.
you very much again to the Global Power Platform Bootcamp and Mumbai edition organizers for having me over here. It was a great honor to be here. So thank you very much, and have a good day and ahead. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Kunal.